Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Adster Podcast. I have with me today Sam Bell, who's our Managing Director for Americas for Adster Technologies. And Sam, great to have you on this episode with us. And love you.
Likewise. Yep. Likewise, Trish. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So, Sam, I think it would be great if we could maybe start with some kind of an introduction. We know your title, but it would be great to get some background. You've been a veteran in the AdTech space. It would be wonderful to understand, what your journey has been and up until now in Adster. So, if you can just help us with your background as well, please.
Sure. So, without aging myself, I've been in digital advertising and advertising technology for over 25 years now. I started my career at Nielsen back in the mid 90s. The big measurement, advertising measurement company. I started there as a part of a small team that was, digital was emerging, and they were trying to figure out how to manage that and incorporate that into their core set of products. So I started with a small team there of about 6 people. We, over a period of time, we grew that to about 200. I was there for 11 years. And that was a great ride. Learned a lot. We were all learning a lot about digital at that point. But after that, after we got a little large within this big multinational corporation, I really missed the startup mentality, the ethos of, move fast and break it, and the nimbleness of being within a startup environment. So ever since then, I've worked for early stage startups, and I really enjoy that environment. After Nielsen, I went to an innovative company called Spot Runner that was based in LA, and I was part of their team in New York. And I've done a lot of that in my career, where helping people crack the U.S. market or the New York market. That's where I'm based. And Spot Runner was a company that was trying to build a TV ad exchange for the buying and selling of traditional spot television. And we were a little too early. We raised $125 million, but we kind of got hit by sort of a slight recession during the time I was there, and changed the business model several times. But I stayed there till the very end, and we sold off the technology asset. At which point, the president of that company suggested that I meet some of his former colleagues when they were at Yahoo, who were starting a company in something called Programmatic, which I had no idea what that was at the time. It was very, very early on, 2012, I believe. So I found out, I found out what they were doing in RTB and Programmatic, and I said, wow, this is really the future. So they hired me to be their first employee in New York City, and I eventually opened their New York office, which was originally on my couch in my living room. But that was a great ride. Spent 4 years there. Ended up managing a team of about 20 folks there, and we were on a rocket ship in the early days of Programmatic. After that, I actually went to a mobile-focused SSP called Smato, because I wanted to learn more about mobile. It was certainly, back then, everyone was saying it was the year of mobile for many years, and, I still think it is the year of mobile, but obviously CTV is taking a lion's share of people's thoughts these days. But, I think that when you look at the projections for mobile advertising, I think we did over, I think by 2032, we're looking at doing over $1 trillion globally in mobile global advertising. So, I went to Smato to try to learn more about mobile programmatic.
Right.
after that, I went to a company called Atomic, which was, really kind of more, very similar to what we're trying to do at Adster, which is, there's this idea that, a lot of the investment in programmatic has gone into the buy side, and publishers either don't have the domain expertise, or they don't have the resources that the buy side has. And that's sort of typically been true. So we were trying to help publishers, optimize, give them the tools to, be able to get better visibility into their programmatic sales channel.
Right.
And we did that through, machine learning, which I guess you now call AI. But we were setting, pricing floors within the exchanges on our publishers' inventory at scale, using machine learning. So on a daily basis, we might push 20,000 based on the previous day's activity on their programmatic inventory. We would push, tens of thousands of pricing floor changes into the exchange on behalf of our publisher clients. That was a great product, and the publishers really needed it. What was really interesting, and this is what's so exciting to me about AdTech, was that the industry changed and went to header bidding, and also went from second price auction to first price auction,
right,
and made our product sort of obsolete. But that's what I love about this industry, is that there is constantly changing. The landscape's changing. I mean, right now you see cookies being deprecated, and we're going to have to come up. Various business models are evolving based on that. So after that, I went to a company called Get Intent, where we were building sort of bespoke ad tech technologies for agencies and publishers and ad networks, and that was really well received, especially because we were proposing sort of getting rid of the sort of the intermediaries within the ad tech, ecosystem,
right,
by licensing technology instead of taking a cut of media. So that was a really interesting. I think it was a little early. And again, this goes to kind of what we're trying to do at Adster, which is there was just a lot of lack of domain expertise, on both the buy side and the sell side. Interestingly enough, the networks were the ones who were really, knew more about, that sort of had more of the domain expertise, and they were most of our big clients back then. After that, I did some work on a stealth startup in the mobile space, and raised some money. We ended up selling that off. I went to a company called, oh wait, I forgot the name of the company. Oh yeah. So I went to a company called Ficto, where we were trying to build out, we were building out sort of a Netflix for mobile video content on apps, right? Where we were trying to do sort of snackable content pieces, content and support it through advertising.
right.
That was fun, and the company was based in LA. So again, I was their sort of man on the ground on the East Coast in the States. Then I went to a company called Mobiquity Technologies, which was basically a mobile DSP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stayed there for about 3 years. It's a very crowded market, and very hard to get differentiation in the market if you're a DSP, especially these days. So when I heard about what you guys were doing, and the problems that it solved for publishers, especially mobile publishers, app publishers, and mobile publishers and app developers, I felt that was a really interesting proposition. So back in the last summer, I joined Adster.
Fantastic. I think that's the best decision you made. I mean, yeah. So thanks, Sam, for that, background. I think you've had a fantastic journey through the ad tech industry, and I think most of the names that you mentioned are like almost household names, that one has heard of, especially in the programmatic space. And I think had a ringside seat to the way they have actually evolved and grown. But truly, I mean, from your personal perspective, what's been the most exciting phase of this journey, and what do you enjoy the most? I mean, you probably alluded a bit to that in between, but would love to hear it again from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the growth of the market and how it's evolving so quickly is just really exciting to be a part of. The community, the ad tech community is small, and everyone kind of knows each other who's been in the space for a long time. And it's a really nice community to be a part of. Everyone's really smart. We're trying to disrupt things. This is where the market's going. For example, in one of the SSPs that I worked for, I was responsible for the growth, the team that managed all ad revenue for the SSP, and we went from about $6 million a year in annual billings to about $200 million a year in annual billings in 4 years.
Fantastic.
Right. So that's the kind of growth we're looking at.
Sam, another thing about this journey is that you've really seen the industry evolve from, early 2012 to now, and you've like seen the dynamic nature of changes that have come through. But largely it appears that the sell side still seems to be grappling with the same set of challenges, or still seems to have be struggling with scaling monetization, which probably was the case back then as well. But from your perspective and from what you've seen of the industry and how it's evolved, what do you think in the current context, are the challenges for publishers as they go out there and try to scale monetization?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of there are several different things. I think one is there are a lot of ad tech vendors or potential partners out there for publishers that can help increase revenue or help with operational efficiencies. I think for publishers, they need and a lot of those solutions, especially the walled gardens, don't have don't provide a lot of transparency to what's happening in the publisher's ad tech stack, especially in mobile.
Right.
So the walled gardens in particular, the Facebooks, the Googles, the GAMs, Google Ad Manager, the Amazons of the world really don't provide any sort of transparency. So and those are the big suppliers of revenue to mobile ad publishers, ad tech publishers. I think one of the other things with I think lack of resources and the fear of doing multiple integrations for publishers is been something that I've noticed as we enter the North American market. Complexity of tech, multiple intermediaries, multiple platforms, and then there's, I think one of the things that's underlooked, is that, there's, especially with mobile and mobile apps, is that, there's a problem with, a big problem with latency, and it's one of the things that I was excited about what Adster does is, the concept of, sort of prefetching ads to decrease latency and increase fill rates and increase eCPMs, as well as trying to manage multiple demand sources without increasing that latency. And those are sort of the main sort of challenges I see for publishers in this day and age, especially in mobile.
Right. And I think when we talk of monetization from a publisher perspective, I think there's always this issue of, trust and transparency, because they're always grappling with, and you alluded to some of this earlier, right? You talked about the fact that there are a number of ad tech vendors out there who promise the moon, and obviously publishers are, not sure whom to trust and, whether the actual promises will be met or not. When you first looked at Adster and you looked at what we were building, what struck you as the most promising thing from a publisher perspective? Because ultimately, I mean, you're championing us on the ground there in North America, and you're going to have to take the story forward. So, what do you think builds credibility with publishers when we go out and especially around the fact that they can trust us, or we are going to be more transparent with with data for them?
Yeah, I mean, what we built at Adster is what we call a meta mediation platform, and that's sort of a new concept out there. Where we're trying to sit on top of existing ad tech infrastructure, and without removing existing partners or direct relationships with the existing ad tech partners that a particular publisher may have. Because typically right now they'll pick one mediation platform. They may have, a couple SDKs integrated, but they can't do too many. And historically they're just looking at that one mediation platform to bring in the best bids, through the open auction process. On the web, it's been predominantly a pre-bids custom header bidding adapter, and then you have someone like Amazon as a traditional header bidding partner. But no one's really addressed what we call the last mile. Whether ads are being delivered without latency, and if the revenue was being maximized. And also being able to add multiple more than one SDK through what we have, which is a meta SDK. So you can tap in as multiple demand partners without having to add individual SDKs directly to the publisher's app or mobile website. So it creates competition between mediation. We create competition between mediation and header bidding platforms, and we ensure a publisher's inventory is maximizing its potential with the least amount of latency. We're not an SSP or a network. The focus is on transparency and ensuring the publisher sees all the revenue being generated within their own account. So basically we configure their existing account on the Adster stack so they can transparently see the revenue being accrued directly from each network that's tapped into our SDK.
I think that's and that's such a crucial part of transparency, because when they are able to see for themselves, because a large part of it is, I'm being told that my inventory generated certain amount of revenue, but I can't see that on a dashboard transparently and see that money arriving in my account. That generally tends to make a lot of publishers uncomfortable. But having access to their own accounts and being able to see this arrive, the revenue arrive into their accounts is, I think, a big part of building out that trust and transparency. So, sorry.
Wait, one more thing that really kind of attracted me to Adster is, I think everyone that I talk to on the publisher side is very wary of, ripping out any of their existing ad tech stack partners.
Right.
And what I've been trying to do here in the US is in North America is try to make it clear to folks that at Adster you don't need to change anything in your ad tech stack. You can our Meta SDK implementation, it's not really adding another SDK because we basically already have all those vendors and partners integrated within our SDK. So if a publisher already has a relationship with, someone like, Amazon or a mediation platform, or an AppLovin or a Unity, all that stuff is already integrated into our ad tech stack. So there's, it takes like days, not weeks, to integrate our Meta SDK. And then all those existing relationships stay with the publisher. And the integrations come through us. And they're already done. We've already done it. So I think that's something that, we're trying to make clearer, here in the US.
Right. And I think it's really important for us to stand distinctly outside the SSP layer or the network layer, because we're not bringing any new demand to the table. But what we are doing is we are helping publishers maximize and orchestrate the existing demand better, while also making sure that we are delivering, ads efficiently, obviously with the least amount of latency. So, Sam, also curious, given your conversations in North America and the fact that we've been at a couple of events like Programmatic IO, Prebid, a bunch of others, what segments do you believe are the most ripe? So what kind of publishers should be sitting up and taking notice of what Adster is building? And which segment are you typically going after in the Americas market?
Yeah, so we've built our stack for both app and web publishers. We support Android, iOS, and customer header bidding SDKs for both app and web. There's a single console which allows them to set network priority that we provide. What we've been finding is that the sort of mid-market app developers and our sweet spot. App is way more complicated than web, so there's a lot more you can do to increase revenue. And we're seeing our clients are seeing sometimes 150% increase in revenue from the baseline that we're setting with them for the trailing 6 months. So where that's really, I think, attractive is sort of the mid-market publishers that have a daily a million daily active users, 10 million daily impressions. They work with one or multiple mediation platforms, and they maybe these guys are focused on their app, and they usually sort of set it and forget it with one mediation partner. Right. And you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So there's an operational efficiency for these guys because they may not have an optimization team in-house, and they're outsourcing that to sort of one partner. And that partner, they're just sort of relying on that partner to make them as much money as possible. But there's definitely a blind spot there because there's things like, operational efficiencies that we can provide. There are things like, again, as we mentioned earlier, the decreasing latency, by doing things like decreasing latency and increasing render rates, so that these folks are not only seeing sort of increased demand competition, but they are also seeing increased fill rates. So the folks in that sort of with that said, we're talking to some, very large app publishers too, who really like some of the features that we have that, that including dynamic, we're doing setting dynamic floor pricing at a user level, and that's done through, machine learning and AI. And, that's something that, typically that's done on the segment level. We're doing it at the user level in real time. So we're setting floor prices at the user level in real time. That is another feature that seems to be resonating very well here in the United States.
Fantastic. Yeah, we're getting a lot of interest on that front. And I think publishers are beginning to sit up and take notice of the fact that it gives them a lot more leverage and control over the different underlying parameters that they can influence. And the fact that, there's so much more user level data that publishers can actually leverage to push their bids higher, to make sure that they are getting more bang for their buck out of their inventory. I think that's really something that we are hoping to build on. Sam, also we filed a patent for this, as you're aware, and this is something that is under examination right now with the US Patent Office. It looks fairly favorable from an examination perspective. But, how do you think we can position Adster to be the company that's really looking at cutting edge technology and bringing more power back to the publishers to be able to influence outcomes that are, in their interest?
Well, I think, we've talked about a lot of this already. I think what, there are a lot of players, monetization, operational efficiency players in the mobile ad tech space, and kind of helping them, realize that, they can sort of aggregate multiple partners through us, without major, resource allocation. Again, we were talking about, to implement our solution, it's days, not weeks, and helping them realize that they can continue to have those relationships with the vendors that help them monetize, and at the same time, get some operational efficiencies and some additional transparency into how their, ad tech stack works, and improve revenue. And that's what we help, publishers do. We are increasing revenue 2 or 3 times, with the publishers we're working, and that's a few day integration. So, that's where, the message we're trying to relate to the ad tech, publisher ecosystem.
Fantastic. Sam, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I wish us all the very best as we advance further into the US market. And I look forward to spending more time in the US with you in the coming months as we, meet with prospects and customers. And look forward to having you back on this Adster podcast on another new episode very soon.
Thanks for having me, Girish.
Thanks.